The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting shadows that made the concrete pillars look like prison bars. Sarah's heels clicked against the oil-stained floor as she hurried toward her car, her purse clutched tight against her ribs. She was late. Again. The marketing presentation had run over, and now the underground garage was nearly empty, just a few scattered vehicles under the harsh lights. She didn't see him until it was too late. Sarah? Her blood turned to ice. That voice. She'd spent 6 months learning to forget that voice. 6 months rebuilding herself after he'd torn her down, piece by piece, with those same lips that used to whisper promises. She kept walking, faster now, her car just 30 feet away. Don't you dare ignore me! Footsteps behind her, quick and angry. I've been calling you for weeks. I blocked your number, Derek. She didn't turn around, her keys already in her hand, thumb hovering over the panic button. There's a reason for that. His hand shot out and grabbed her arm, spinning her around with enough force that her purse slipped from her shoulder and hit the concrete with a dull thud. Derek's face was flushed, his breath sour with alcohol, and his fingers dug into her bicep hard enough to bruise. You blocked me? After everything I did for you? His laugh was sharp and cruel. After I let you live in my apartment, use my connections, meet my friends, you, ungrateful, let go of me. Sarah tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The garage was so quiet, so empty. Where was everyone? Derek, you're hurting me. Good. Maybe you need to hurt a little. He stepped closer, backing her against a concrete pillar. Maybe you need to remember what happens when you embarrass me. Do you know what my colleagues said when you moved out? When you told everyone I was controlling? You made me look like a fool. You are a fool. The words escaped before she could stop them, and she saw his eyes go dark, his free hand curling into a fist. You little... I'd finish that sentence very carefully if I were you. The voice came from behind Derek, smooth and cold as winter steel. Sarah's eyes snapped up, and she saw him, a man leaning against a black Mercedes about 20 feet away, half hidden in shadow. How long had he been there? She hadn't heard a car door, hadn't heard footsteps. Derek's head whipped around. This is none of your business, man. Just keep walking. The stranger pushed off from his car and stepped into the light. Sarah's breath caught. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that looked carved from marble, all sharp angles and cold authority. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly salary, and when he moved, there was something predatory about it, something that made her think of wolves circling in the dark. I don't think I will. His eyes, pale blue, almost gray, fixed on Derek's hand where it gripped Sarah's arm. I think you're going to let the lady go. Right now. Or what? Derek's voice cracked slightly, but he didn't release her. You gonna make me? The stranger smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Yes. The single word carried so much certainty, so much quiet threat, that Sarah felt Derek's fingers loosen on her arm, but then his pride kicked in, that same stubborn pride that had made their relationship a living nightmare, and he straightened his shoulders. I said this is none of your business. Sarah and I are having a private conversation about our relationship. We don't have a relationship, Sarah said, finding her voice. She wrenched her arm free and stepped sideways, putting distance between herself and Derek. I broke up with you 6 months ago. This is harassment. Harassment? Derek's face twisted. Baby, don't be dramatic. I just want to talk. I deserve an explanation. You deserve nothing from her. The stranger had moved closer without seeming to move at all. He was less than 10 feet away now, and Sarah could see the expensive watch on his wrist, the cold calculation in his expression. And I'd suggest you leave before this becomes a problem neither of us wants. Who the hell are you? Derek demanded. Her new boyfriend? Is that what this is? You moved on that fast, Sarah? Found yourself a sugar daddy? The stranger's jaw tightened. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to walk away. 5. 4. This is insane. Derek looked between them, his face reddening. You're both insane. Sarah, when you come to your senses, you know my number. But don't wait too long. I won't be available forever. 3. Derek held up his hands in mock surrender, backing away. Fine, I'm going. But this isn't over, Sarah. We have things to settle. Money you owe me. Property. 2. I'm leaving. Derek turned and strode toward the exit ramp, but not before throwing one last look over his shoulder. You'll regret this. The stranger watched him go, unmoving, until Derek's footsteps faded into the distance, and Sarah heard a car engine start somewhere above them. Only then did he turn to look at her. Are you hurt? Sarah realized she was shaking. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the stuffy garage air. I'm fine, just shaken up. Thank you. If you hadn't been here, I don't know what he would have done. The stranger's eyes swept over her, clinical and thorough, lingering on her arm where Derek had grabbed her. You should photograph those marks. Document everything. Has he done this before? No, I mean, he was controlling during our relationship, but he never... Sarah swallowed hard. I thought once I moved out, once I made it clear it was over, he'd leave me alone. But he shows up at my work sometimes, sends emails. Tonight was the first time he's... She couldn't finish the sentence. The stranger moved closer, and Sarah caught the scent of expensive cologne, something dark and woodsy. Up close, he was even more striking, and more intimidating. There was a scar along his left cheekbone, faint but visible, and his hands, when he bent to pick up her fallen purse, were scarred across the knuckles. The hands of someone who'd been in fights. Serious ones. Here. He held out her purse. You dropped this. Thank you. Sarah took it, her fingers brushing his. His skin was warm, calloused. Not the soft hands of an office worker. I'm Sarah Mitchell. I know. At her startled look, he added, He said your name. Several times. Right. Of course. She felt foolish. Can I at least know the name of my rescuer? He hesitated, and for a moment she thought he might refuse. Then, Luca. Luca Moretti. Italian. That explained the faint accent she'd noticed, the slight roll of his R's. Well, Luca Moretti, I owe you. Seriously, can I buy you a coffee or something? It's the least I can do. That's not necessary. Please, I'd feel better. Sarah surprised herself with her insistence, but something about this man, maybe the way he'd stepped in without hesitation, maybe the calm authority he'd wielded like a weapon, made her want to know more. There's a late-night cafe 2 blocks from here. They make excellent espresso. Luca studied her for a long moment, those pale eyes unreadable. Then slowly, he nodded. 1 coffee, but you'll follow me in your car. I don't want you driving alone, not after this, not if he's waiting somewhere. The thought sent a fresh chill down Sarah's spine. She hadn't considered that Derek might be lingering, watching. Do you really think he would? Men like him don't let go easily. Luca gestured toward her car. Drive carefully, stay close. If anything seems wrong, call the police immediately. Understood? Sarah nodded, feeling oddly like a child being given instructions by a stern parent. But she didn't argue. She climbed into her Honda Civic, hands still trembling slightly as she started the engine, and watched Luca walk back to his Mercedes. Even the way he moved spoke of controlled power, of danger barely leashed. Who was this man? The cafe was warm and bright, a stark contrast to the dark parking garage. Sarah chose a corner booth while Luca ordered espresso for him, chamomile tea for her because her nerves couldn't handle caffeine right now. When he sat down across from her, she got her first good look at him in proper light. He was younger than she'd thought, maybe mid-30s, though there was something old in his eyes. Tired, like he'd seen too much. The scar on his cheek was more pronounced under the cafe's lights, and she noticed another one, smaller, cutting through his left eyebrow. You're staring, he said, not unkindly. Sarah flushed. Sorry, I'm trying to figure you out. You don't seem like someone who normally rescues damsels in distress. I don't. He took a sip of his espresso. But I also don't walk away when I see a woman being threatened. Even so, most people would have just, I don't know, called security or something. You stepped in. You weren't afraid of him at all. Luca's mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile. No, I wasn't. Why not? He's not a small guy. He works out. He couldn't have. The quiet certainty in Luca's voice made Sarah's questions die in her throat. Tell me about him. How long were you together? Sarah wrapped her hands around her tea, grateful for the warmth. 2 years. We met at a networking event. He was charming at first, attentive, generous. He worked in commercial real estate, made good money. But once we moved in together, things changed. He wanted to know where I was all the time, who I was talking to. He'd get angry if I went out with friends without telling him first. He controlled the finances, criticized my clothes, my job, my family. But you left. It took me a year to plan it. I saved money secretly, found a new apartment, moved out while he was on a business trip. Sarah stared into her tea. I thought that was the hard part. Turns out leaving was just the beginning. He can't accept it's over. He keeps saying we need to talk things through and work on us. He doesn't understand that there is no us anymore. Men like Derek don't think of women as people, Luca said quietly. You're possessions to them. Objects. And they don't give up their possessions willingly. The bitter knowledge in his voice made Sarah look up sharply. You sound like you've known men like that. I've known worse. Luca set down his cup with careful precision. Sarah, you need to take this seriously. Get a restraining order. Document every contact he makes. Install security cameras at your apartment. Tell your employer about the situation. Make sure you're never alone in vulnerable places. I will. I promise. Sarah hesitated. Can I ask you something? What were you doing in that parking garage? It's not connected to any shopping or businesses. It's just for the office building. I was waiting for someone. In the dark? In your car? Luca's expression didn't change. Yes. It was clear he wouldn't elaborate, and Sarah found herself accepting that. There was something about Luca Moretti that suggested he lived in a world of secrets, a world where questions weren't always welcome. But he'd helped her when she needed it, and that was what mattered. Well, I'm glad you were there, she said softly. Even if it was just coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. Luca stood, pulling out his wallet and leaving a 20 on the table, far more than their drinks cost. Take care of yourself, Sarah Mitchell. Be safe. Wait. Sarah stood too, suddenly not wanting him to leave. Can I have your number? In case Derek comes back? In case I need help? Luca studied her for a long moment. Then he pulled a card from his wallet. Heavy cream stock with just a name and phone number, no title or company, and handed it to her. Call if you need me, anytime. Thank you, really, for everything. He inclined his head, a gesture that seemed oddly formal, almost old world. Then he was gone, striding out into the night, and Sarah was left standing in the bright cafe with a business card that told her nothing and everything at once. She looked down at the elegant script. Luca Moretti, and a phone number. No website. No email. No company name. Who was he? 3 days later, Sarah stood in her boss's office trying to explain why she needed to leave early again. Margaret Chen was understanding but firm. Sarah had already missed 2 client meetings this month, and the Rogers account needed constant attention. I'm sorry, Sarah said, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. I have to go to the courthouse to file for the restraining order. The clerk said if I don't do it today, I'll have to wait another week because of the holiday closure. Margaret sighed, softening. Sarah, I understand you're dealing with a difficult situation, but you need to find a way to handle your personal life that doesn't interfere with work. We're short-staffed as it is. I know. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. See that it doesn't. Margaret waved her away. Go. but I expect you to be on call tonight for the Rogers presentation prep." Sarah grabbed her things and hurried out, checking her phone as she walked. 3 missed calls from a restricted number and 2 new voicemails. Her stomach clenched. She knew without listening that it was Derek. He'd been calling constantly, leaving messages that swung wildly between apologetic and accusatory. She was so focused on her phone that she almost missed him. Derek stood beside her car in the outdoor parking lot, arms crossed, expression dark. Sarah froze, her hand automatically reaching for her purse where she'd put Luca's card. It was 2 in the afternoon. Broad daylight. Surely Derek wouldn't try anything here. "We need to talk," Derek said as she approached. "You've been avoiding my calls. I blocked your number. That's not avoiding. That's setting a boundary." Sarah kept her distance, keys clutched in her fist. "You need to leave, Derek. I'm getting a restraining order today." His face reddened. "A restraining order? Are you kidding me? I haven't done anything wrong. I just want to talk to my girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, and you're treating me like some kind of criminal." Derek moved toward her and Sarah stepped back. "This is insane, Sarah. You're being dramatic. So I got a little upset in the parking garage the other night. I'd been drinking. I was emotional. You can't hold that against me. You grabbed me hard enough to bruise. You backed me against a wall. You threatened me." "I never threatened you. Stop lying." Derek's voice rose, and several people in the parking lot turned to look. He noticed and lowered his voice, but the anger stayed in his eyes. "You're twisting everything, making me out to be some kind of monster. Is it because of that guy? Your new boyfriend? Is he putting ideas in your head?" "I don't have a new boyfriend, and I'm done talking about this." Sarah pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police if you don't leave right now." Derek lunged forward and knocked the phone from her hand. It clattered across the asphalt, and Sarah cried out, stumbling backward. Her heel caught on the curb and she fell, her palms scraping against the rough pavement. For a moment, Derek just stared down at her, breathing hard. Then his expression shifted. Shock, maybe regret. And he reached down. "Sarah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Don't touch her." The voice came from behind Derek, and Sarah's heart leaped. Luca. He stood about 10 feet away, hands in the pockets of his dark slacks. Expression carved from ice. He looked utterly calm, but there was something in his stillness that screamed danger. Derek whirled around. "You! This is your fault. You're the one putting ideas in her head, aren't you? Turning her against me." "I've never met her before 3 nights ago." Luca walked forward slowly, his eyes never leaving Derek. "But I'm going to give you the same advice I gave you then. Walk away. Right now, while you still can." "Or what?" "You'll what?" Derek's hands clenched into fists. "You think you scare me? I'm not afraid of you." "You should be." Luca's voice dropped, quiet and deadly. "Because unlike Sarah, I don't have to be civilized. I don't have to play by society's rules. And if you touch her one more time, I will make you regret the day you were born." Something in his tone, in the absolute certainty of his words, made Derek falter. Sarah saw it. The moment Derek's bravado cracked, the moment he realized he was facing something he didn't understand. But Derek's pride wouldn't let him back down. "You're threatening me? In front of witnesses?" Luca smiled. It was a terrible smile, cold and sharp as a knife. "No one heard me threaten you. They only saw you knock a woman to the ground and stand over her while she was hurt. How do you think that looks to them?" Derek glanced around and seemed to realize for the first time that they had an audience. A woman by the building entrance had her phone out, recording. 2 men stood by a pickup truck, watching with crossed arms. A security guard was walking toward them from the building. "This isn't over," Derek hissed, but he was backing away toward his car. "You can't keep hiding behind other people, Sarah. Eventually you'll have to face me, and when you do—" "If you attempt to contact her again," Luca interrupted, his voice carrying across the parking lot, "I will ensure you regret it. Are we clear?" Derek's face went white, then red. Without another word, he turned and stormed to his car, nearly hitting another vehicle as he peeled out of the parking lot. Sarah was still on the ground, her hands stinging, her heart racing. Luca crouched beside her, his earlier coldness melting into concern. "Are you hurt?" His hands hovered near her shoulders, not touching, but ready to help. "Your hands are bleeding." "Just scraped. I'm okay." But her voice shook, and tears burned behind her eyes. The shock was wearing off, replaced by the realization of how much worse it could have been. "How are you here? How did you know?" "I didn't. I had business nearby." Luca helped her to her feet with surprising gentleness, then retrieved her phone from where it had fallen. The screen was cracked, but still functional. "But I'm glad I was." The security guard reached them out of breath. "Miss, are you all right? Should I call the police?" "Yes," Luca answered before Sarah could. "She's filing for a restraining order today, and this incident needs to be documented. Also, check your parking lot cameras. Everything was recorded." The guard nodded and spoke into his radio. Sarah sagged against her car, suddenly exhausted. Luca stayed close, a solid presence, and she found herself grateful for it. More than grateful. "Thank you," she whispered. "Again. You keep saving me. Perhaps you should stop needing to be saved." But there was no judgment in his voice, only a kind of grim understanding. "Though this wasn't your fault. He's escalating. That's dangerous." "I know." Sarah looked up at him, this mysterious man who kept appearing when she needed him most. "Luca, what kind of business do you do? What were you really doing here?" His expression closed off. "Nothing you need to worry about." "But I do worry. You keep helping me, and I don't even know who you are. For all I know, you could be just as dangerous as Derek." "More dangerous," Luca said quietly. "Much more. But not to you." The way he said it sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. Not fear exactly, but awareness. This man was not what he seemed. He carried violence in him, controlled and leashed, but undeniably present. She should be afraid. She should thank him politely and never see him again. Instead, she heard herself say, "Will you come with me? To the courthouse? I don't want to go alone, and I don't think Derek will give up. He might be waiting somewhere." Luca's jaw tightened. "I'll follow you. If he shows up, I'll handle it." "That's not what I meant. I meant, would you come with me? Inside? As a witness to what happened today?" For a long moment, Luca didn't answer. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Yes, I'll come with you." The courthouse was a maze of fluorescent lights and tired bureaucracy. Sarah filled out forms in triplicate, while Luca stood nearby, scanning every person who entered their section of the waiting area. The clerk, a middle-aged woman with reading glasses on a chain, looked between them with barely concealed curiosity. "And this gentleman is," she asked Sarah, "a witness to both incidents." "Your boyfriend?" "No." Sarah felt her cheeks heat. "Just a friend." The clerk didn't look convinced, but she processed the paperwork efficiently. By the time they left, Sarah had a temporary restraining order and a court date for a permanent one in 2 weeks. "Thank you for coming," Sarah said as they stood outside in the fading afternoon light. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." Luca looked at her, really looked at her, and Sarah felt seen in a way she hadn't in years. "Sarah, I need you to understand something. Derek is not going to stop. Restraining orders are pieces of paper. They don't physically prevent anyone from doing anything. You need to be prepared." "Prepared for what?" "For him to violate the order. For him to escalate. For him to become violent." Luca's voice was steady, matter of fact, and somehow that made it more frightening. "You need to move. Change your routine. Vary your schedule. Don't go anywhere alone, especially at night." Sarah felt overwhelmed. "I can't afford to move right now. I just signed a new lease. And my job, I can't just change everything. I have responsibilities." "Then let me help you." The offer hung in the air between them. Sarah stared at him, confused. Help me how? Protection. I have resources. People who can watch your apartment, your workplace. Who can make sure Derek stays away. Like bodyguards? Sarah almost laughed. I can't afford that. Do you know how much that would cost? You wouldn't pay. Luca's expression was unreadable. Consider it a favor. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. No, Luca agreed. But I know men like Derek. And I know what happens when women like you are left to face them alone. Something dark flickered across his face. I won't allow that. Not if I can prevent it. Sarah should say no. She should walk away from this strange, dangerous man and handle her problems through proper channels. Police, lawyers, restraining orders. But as she looked at Luca, at the absolute certainty in his eyes, she felt something shift inside her. She was tired of being afraid. Tired of looking over her shoulder. Tired of Derek controlling her life even after she'd left him. Okay, she heard herself say. Okay, I accept your help. Luca's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes warmed. Good. Give me your address. I'll have someone there tonight. It should have felt intrusive, having a stranger know where she lived, having security she couldn't pay for. But instead, Sarah felt relief wash over her like a wave. Maybe, just maybe, she could finally breathe again. That night, Sarah's doorbell rang at 7 o'clock. She looked through the peephole to see a compact woman with short dark hair and intelligent eyes standing in the hallway, hands in her jacket pockets. Yes? Sarah called through the door. My name is Rachel. Luca sent me. Sarah opened the door cautiously, keeping the chain on. He said he'd send security, but I thought it would be a man. No offense. Rachel's smile was sharp. Men aren't the only ones who can provide protection. May I come in? I need to assess your apartment's security. Sarah let her in. Feeling strange about this entire situation, Rachel moved through the apartment with professional efficiency, checking windows, testing locks, examining sightlines. She made notes on a small tablet. You need better locks, Rachel said finally. A security system, cameras at your door and windows. I can have it all installed tomorrow. I told you I can't afford. It's covered. Rachel's tone left no room for argument. Luca's orders. He also wants someone posted in the parking lot overnight, and an escort when you come and go from work. This is too much. I can't accept all this. Then take it up with Luca. Rachel handed her a card, identical to the one Luca had given her. But I'd advise you to let him help. He doesn't offer lightly, and from what he told me about your ex, you need protection whether you want to admit it or not. Sarah sank onto her couch, feeling overwhelmed. I don't understand. Why is he doing this? He doesn't owe me anything. Rachel studied her for a moment, then seemed to make a decision. Luca lost someone once, someone he cared about. He couldn't protect her from a man like your Derek. Her voice was carefully neutral. He won't let that happen again, not if he can help it. The words hit Sarah like a punch to the chest. She thought of the shadows in Luca's eyes, the old grief hidden behind his cold exterior. What happened to her? That's not my story to tell. Rachel headed for the door. The security system will be installed tomorrow morning. Don't leave for work until it's done. And Sarah, if you see Derek anywhere near this building, you call Luca immediately. Not the police. Luca. Understood? Sarah nodded, too stunned to argue. After Rachel left, Sarah sat in her apartment, staring at Luca's business card. She pulled out her phone and, before she could second-guess herself, typed a text. Thank you for everything. I don't know how to repay you. The response came within seconds. You don't. Just stay safe. That's all I ask. Sarah stared at the words, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. This man, this dangerous, mysterious man, was protecting her for no reason, except that he'd decided to. Because he'd lost someone and wouldn't lose anyone else. She thought of his cold smile when he'd faced down Derek. The barely leashed violence in his voice. The way he'd been so gentle when helping her up after she fell. Who was Luca Moretti? And why did she suddenly want so badly to know? The next 2 weeks passed in a strange kind of peace. The security system was installed as promised. Cameras, better locks, a panic button connected directly to Rachel's phone. Sarah didn't see Derek at all, though Rachel reported 2 incidents where he'd driven slowly past her building, only to leave when he spotted the security presence. The restraining order became permanent. Derek didn't show up to contest it. Sarah should have felt relieved, but instead she felt unsettled. The protection Luca provided was thorough and professional, but he himself remained absent. She texted him twice, once to thank him for the security system, once to let him know about the permanent restraining order, and both times he responded briefly, professionally. She shouldn't care. She should be grateful and move on with her life. But she couldn't stop thinking about him. Then, on a Friday night 3 weeks after their first meeting, her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Sarah, it's Luca. Her heart jumped. Hi, is everything okay? Did something happen? No, everything's fine. Rachel says Derek hasn't attempted contact. A pause. I'm calling to tell you that my contract ends tonight. Contract? The protection detail. I told Rachel 2 weeks, with an extension if necessary. But Derek seems to have accepted the situation. I don't think he'll be a problem anymore. Sarah felt something cold settle in her stomach. Oh, okay. Well, thank you for everything you've done. I don't know what would have happened without you. You would have been fine. You're stronger than you think. Another pause. And Sarah heard something in the background. Music, voices, the clink of glasses. I should go. Luca, wait. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. Can I see you? To say thank you properly? Maybe dinner? Silence. Then, that's not a good idea. Why not? Because I'm not a good man, Sarah. You should stay away from me. That's not fair. You've been nothing but kind to me. You saved me. Twice. You protected me when you didn't have to. That doesn't make me good. It just makes me decent enough to help when someone needs it. His voice was firm, final. Goodbye, Sarah. Take care of yourself. He hung up before she could respond. Sarah stared at her phone, frustration and hurt warring in her chest. After everything, after all he'd done, he was just going to disappear? Walk away as mysteriously as he'd appeared? No. She wouldn't accept that. She pulled up Rachel's number and called. Sarah? Is everything all right? I need to know where Luca is. Right now. Rachel hesitated. That's not a good idea. Luca likes his privacy. Please, Rachel. Just tell me where he is. I need to talk to him. Another pause, longer this time. Then Rachel sighed. He's at Bellissimo. It's a restaurant downtown. Very exclusive. But Sarah, listen to me. Luca keeps his personal life and his work separate for a reason. You don't want to get involved in his world. I'll take my chances. Thank you, Rachel. She hung up before Rachel could try to talk her out of it. Bellissimo was exactly the kind of place Sarah had imagined. Elegant, expensive, with a waiting list months long. She wore the best dress she owned, a simple black number she'd bought for a work gala last year, and felt underdressed the moment she walked through the doors. The maitre d' looked at her with polite skepticism. Do you have a reservation, miss? No, but I'm looking for someone. Luca Moretti. Is he here? The man's expression flickered, surprise quickly hidden. Mr. Moretti is dining privately this evening. I'm afraid I cannot disturb him. Please, it's important. Just tell him Sarah Mitchell is here. The maitre d' studied her, clearly weighing his options. Then he nodded curtly. Wait here. Sarah waited, her heart pounding. She was being crazy, impulsive. but she couldn't let Luca just disappear from her life without at least trying to understand why. 5 minutes later, the maitre d' returned. "Mr. Moretti will see you. Please, follow me." He led her through the restaurant to a private dining room in the back. Through the partially open door, Sarah could see Luca sitting at a table with 3 other men, all of them dressed in expensive suits, all of them looking dangerous in ways she couldn't quite define. Luca's eyes met hers, and she saw surprise flash across his face before his expression went carefully neutral. He said something to the men at his table, then stood and walked toward her. "Sarah, what are you doing here?" Up close, he looked tired, stressed. There were lines around his eyes she hadn't noticed before. "You hung up on me," she said. "I wasn't done talking. This isn't the place for this conversation." Luca glanced back at his companions, who were watching with undisguised interest. "You shouldn't have come here." "Why not?" "Are you ashamed of me? Is that why you won't see me?" "Ashamed?" Luca's laugh was bitter. "No, Sarah. I'm trying to protect you." "From what? Derek? You already did that." "From me." The words were quiet, intense. "From my life. From the things I do. The world I live in. You don't belong here, and I won't drag you into it. What if I want to be dragged?" Sarah stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Luca, I'm not stupid. I know you're involved in something that isn't exactly legal. I've suspected it from the beginning. But you've been nothing but good to me. You've protected me, helped me, asked for nothing in return. I trust you more than I've trusted anyone in years. You shouldn't. But I do." She reached out and touched his arm, feeling the tension coiled beneath his jacket. "Have dinner with me. Just the 2 of us. Let me thank you properly, and if after that you still want me to walk away, I will. I promise." Luca stared down at her hand on his arm, conflict clear on his face. Then, slowly, he covered her hand with his own. "One dinner," he said quietly. "Tomorrow night. But not here. Somewhere quieter." "Okay," Sarah smiled, relief flooding through her. "Tomorrow night." She left the restaurant feeling lighter than she had in months, not noticing the way one of the men at Luca's table watched her go with calculating eyes. The next evening, Sarah stood outside her apartment building, scanning the street for Luca's black Mercedes. She'd changed outfits 3 times before settling on a deep green dress that brought out her eyes. Not too formal, not too casual. When the Mercedes pulled up, her heart did a little flip. Luca got out to open her door, old-fashioned manners that charmed her more than she wanted to admit. He looked stunning in dark jeans and a fitted black shirt, his hair slightly mussed as if he'd been running his hands through it. "You look beautiful," he said, and the sincerity in his voice made her blush. "Thank you. So do you." He smiled, a real smile this time, warm and genuine, and Sarah felt something in her chest crack open. They drove to a small Italian restaurant in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place locals loved but tourists never found. The owner greeted Luca like an old friend, showed them to a corner table, and disappeared with promises of bringing them something special. "You come here often?" Sarah asked. "My uncle owns it. I grew up eating his food." Luca poured wine for both of them, a deep red that smelled of cherries and spice. "This is real Italian cooking, not what you find in the tourist places." The food, when it came, was extraordinary. Handmade pasta, braised meat that fell apart at the touch of a fork, vegetables prepared so simply and perfectly that they tasted like revelations. They ate and talked, the conversation flowing more easily than Sarah had expected. She learned that Luca had come to the United States when he was 20, that his family was from Naples, that he loved classical music and good coffee and old movies. He learned that she'd wanted to be a writer before settling into marketing, that she had a younger brother in medical school, that she was terrified of spiders but loved thunderstorms. It was easy, natural. And Sarah realized with a start that she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt this comfortable with someone. "Can I ask you something?" she said as dessert arrived, tiramisu, and tiny glasses of limoncello. What happened to the woman Rachel mentioned? The one you lost? Luca's expression shuddered. Sarah, I'm sorry. You don't have to answer. I want to understand. For a long moment, Luca said nothing. Then quietly, her name was Elena. She was my younger sister, 23 years old. He stared down at his wine glass. She had a boyfriend. Jealous. Controlling. He hid her, and she hid it from everyone. By the time I found out, by the time I tried to help her, he didn't finish. He didn't need to. I'm so sorry, Sarah whispered. I was in Milan on business. She called me, crying, saying he'd locked her in their apartment. I told her I'd be on the next flight, that I'd get her out, but I was too slow. Luca's voice was flat, emotionless, but Sarah could see the pain underneath. He killed her that night, beat her to death. By the time I got there, it was too late. Sarah reached across the table and took his hand. He gripped her fingers so tightly it almost hurt. That's why you helped me, she said softly. Why you went to such lengths. I couldn't save Elena, but I could save you. Luca looked up, his pale eyes fierce. I won't apologize for that. I won't apologize for protecting you. I don't want you to apologize. I want you to know that I'm grateful, that what you did mattered. Sarah held his gaze. And I want you to know that I see you, Luca. Not whatever dangerous life you think you lead. I see the man who stepped in to help a stranger, the man who cared enough to make sure she was safe. You don't know what I am, what I do. Then tell me. Luca pulled his hand away. I can't. Why not? Because if you knew you'd leave, you'd be smart to leave. He stood abruptly. I should take you home. This was a mistake. No. Sarah stood too, blocking his path. Don't do that. Don't push me away because you're scared I can't handle the truth. You can't. Try me. She lifted her chin, stubborn. I'm not some delicate flower that needs protecting from reality. I'm a grown woman who's survived an abusive relationship and come out the other side. Whatever you are, whatever you do, I can handle it. Luca stared at her for a long moment, then so quietly she almost didn't hear it. I run an organization, a family. We handle problems that can't be solved through legal means. We do things that would horrify you if you knew the details. I'm not a good man, Sarah. I've hurt people, killed people, and I'd do it again if necessary to protect what's mine. The confession hung in the air between them. Sarah's heart pounded. She should be afraid, should thank him for dinner and walk away and never look back. Instead, she heard herself say, Are there innocents involved? Children? People who didn't choose this life? Never. We have rules, lines we don't cross. Do you hurt women? Never. The word was sharp, absolute. Anyone in my organization who raised a hand to a woman would be dead within the hour. Sarah nodded slowly. Then I don't care what else you do. The man I see is someone who protected me when I needed it, who showed me kindness, who told me the truth even though it could cost him. She stepped closer. I'm not afraid of you, Luca. You should be. But I'm not. She reached up and touched his face, feeling the scar on his cheekbone beneath her fingertips. Take me home, but don't push me away. Not yet. Luca closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. You're going to regret this. Maybe, but that's my choice to make. He drove her home in silence, the air thick with unspoken things. When they reached her building, Luca walked her to her door, safety precautions, even though Derek hadn't been seen in weeks. Thank you for dinner, Sarah said, fumbling with her keys. It was perfect. Sarah? Luca caught her hand, stopping her. If you want out, now is the time. After this, after tonight, if you let me in, I won't let you go easily. I'm not a better man than Derek in that way. When I care about something, I hold on. Tight, maybe too tight. Sarah looked up at him, this dangerous, complicated man who'd crashed into her life. The difference is you'd let go if I asked. Derek never would have. That's what makes you different. She kissed him then, standing on tiptoe, her hands on his chest. For a moment, Luca froze. Then he pulled her against him, deepening the kiss, one hand cradling her head, the other at her waist. It was intense, consuming, nothing like the careful kisses Derek had given her. This was fire and need and something raw that made her knees weak. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Luca pressed his forehead to hers. "You're going to be the death of me," he murmured. "Good," Sarah whispered back. "Then we'll die together." She pulled him inside her apartment and closed the door on the outside world. 6 weeks later, Sarah stood in Luca's penthouse apartment downtown, staring out at the city lights spread below like scattered diamonds. They'd been inseparable since that night, and Sarah had learned to navigate Luca's world. The late-night calls, the security measures, the careful secrecy. She'd met more of his people. Rachel, who'd become something like a friend. Marco, Luca's second-in-command, who treated her with wary respect. Enzo, the uncle who owned the restaurant, and who'd all but adopted her as a niece. She'd also learned that Luca's organization wasn't what she'd imagined. Yes, they operated outside the law, but they also protected their neighborhood, ran legitimate businesses, and maintained a strict code of honor. They weren't saints, but they weren't monsters either. "You're thinking too loud." Luca's voice came from behind her, and she felt his arm slide around her waist. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I'm just thinking about how different my life is now. 3 months ago, I was terrified and alone. Now," she turned in his arms, "now I'm happier than I've been in years. It's strange. Strange good or strange bad. Strange wonderful." Sarah kissed him softly. "I love you, you know." She felt Luca's arms tighten around her. They hadn't said those words yet, had danced around them, implied them, but never spoken them aloud. "Sarah, you don't have to say it back. I just wanted you to know." "No." Luca cupped her face in his hands. "I love you too. I have for weeks. I just didn't want to say it because I was afraid it would make you realize what a terrible idea this is." "It is a terrible idea," Sarah agreed, smiling, "but I'm keeping you anyway." Luca laughed, that warm, genuine laugh she'd grown to love. "Stubborn woman." "You love that about me." "I do." He kissed her, slow and deep. "I love everything about you." They stood there, wrapped in each other, the city glittering below them. For the first time in her adult life, Sarah felt truly safe, truly seen, truly loved. Then Luca's phone rang. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his expression went hard. "I need to take this." He stepped away, speaking in rapid Italian. Sarah couldn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Anger, carefully controlled. When he hung up, his face was grim. "What is it?" Sarah asked. "Derek." Luca's voice was flat. "He was picked up by police tonight, drunk and disorderly at a bar downtown. He's been telling anyone who'll listen that he's going to make Sarah pay for the restraining order." Sarah's stomach dropped. "He's still fixated on me, after all this time?" "Obsession doesn't fade just because you want it to." Luca pulled her close. "But I'm not going to let him hurt you, I promise." "What are you going to do?" "Talk to him. Make sure he understands that you're under protection, that if he comes near you, he'll regret it." Sarah pulled back. "Luca, no. You can't. I don't want you getting in trouble because of me. The restraining order is in place. Let the police handle it. The police can't protect you the way I can." Luca's expression was implacable. "I'm handling this, Sarah. You don't have to worry about it. I do worry. I worry about you." Sarah grabbed his arms. "Promise me you won't do anything that could get you arrested. Or worse." Luca's expression softened. "I promise. I'm just going to have a conversation. That's all. But Sarah had learned to read him over these past weeks. She knew that cold look in his eyes, the set of his jaw. This wouldn't be just a conversation. And part of her, the part that was tired of being afraid, tired of looking over her shoulder, was glad. 2 days later, Sarah was at work when Rachel called. "Turn on the news," Rachel said without preamble. "Channel 7. Sarah pulled up the news on her computer, her heart pounding. The headline made her blood run cold. Local man arrested for stalking. Violation of restraining order. Derek's picture filled the screen. A mugshot, his face bruised and swollen. "What happened?" Sarah breathed. "He showed up at your old apartment building last night. The one you lived in before you moved. Tried to break in, claiming you'd stolen his property." Rachel's voice was matter-of-fact. Building security called the police. When they arrived, they found evidence in his car. Photos of you, your work schedule, notes about your routine. He's being charged with multiple counts of stalking, violating the restraining order, and attempted breaking and entering. "Is he—" Sarah swallowed. "His face. Who did that to him?" "He resisted arrest, according to the police report." Rachel's tone suggested she didn't believe that for a second. "He'll be in jail for a while. Long enough for the charges to go through, and when he gets out, he'll know that approaching you again would be a very bad idea." Sarah closed her eyes, relief and guilt warring in her chest. "Where's Luca?" "At a business meeting. He said he'd call you tonight." After Rachel hung up, Sarah sat at her desk, staring at Derek's face on the screen. She should feel bad, should feel something other than this fierce satisfaction. But she didn't, because Derek had been warned, multiple times, and he'd chosen to keep coming, keep threatening, keep trying to control her life. Now he'd face consequences, real ones. Her phone buzzed with a text from Luca. "Did you see the news?" "Yes. Did you have anything to do with his face?" "The police report says he resisted arrest." "Luca," a long pause. "Then, he needed to understand that you're protected, that there are consequences for threatening what's mine. I'm not sorry." Sarah stared at the words, her heart doing something complicated. She should be horrified. Should tell him this was too much, that he'd gone too far. Instead, she typed, "Thank you for keeping me safe." Always. That night, Luca came to her apartment with takeout and apologies. "I know you said not to do anything that could get me in trouble," he said, setting containers on her kitchen counter. "But I couldn't just stand by and let him keep threatening you." "I know." Sarah wrapped her arms around him. "And I'm not upset. Is that wrong? Should I be upset? I don't know. I stopped trying to figure out what's right and wrong in situations like this a long time ago." Luca held her close. "I just know that I won't let anyone hurt you. Ever. What if someone tries to hurt you?" Sarah pulled back to look at him. "What if being with me puts you in danger? Then I'll handle it. Like I always do." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I have." Luca tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Sarah, I've lived in danger my whole adult life. I know how to protect myself, but I also know that some things are worth the risk. You're worth the risk." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "I don't deserve you." "Yes, you do. You deserve someone who will fight for you, who will stand between you and anything that threatens you." His voice was fierce. "I'm not a good man, Sarah. But I'm your man, and I'll protect what's mine." Possessive much? But Sarah was smiling through her tears. "Absolutely." "Get used to it." They ate dinner on her couch, wrapped in each other, the television playing something neither of them watched. Outside, the city hummed with its usual chaos, but here, in Sarah's small apartment, everything felt right. "Move in with me," Luca said suddenly. Sarah nearly choked on her wine. "What?" "Move in with me, into the penthouse. You practically live there anyway." He set down his food and turned to face her fully. "I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to come home to you every night. I want to build a life with you. Luca, we've only been together for a few months. That's fast. I don't care about fast or slow. I care about what I want, what I need. He took her hand. And I need you. In my life. In my home. In my bed. Every single day. Sarah's heart hammered. This was crazy. Too soon. Too intense. But when had anything about their relationship been normal? Okay, she heard herself say. Okay, I'll move in. Luca's smile was brilliant. Really? Really? But I'm keeping this apartment for a while, just in case you get sick of me. Never going to happen. He pulled her into his lap, kissing her soundly. You're stuck with me now, Sarah Mitchell. Good, Sarah whispered against his lips. Because I'm not letting you go either. The next 3 months were a whirlwind. Sarah moved into Luca's penthouse, blending her life with his in ways that surprised her. She learned the rhythms of his world, the late-night business calls, the security protocols, the constant awareness of danger. But she also learned the gentler sides. Luca making coffee every morning exactly how she liked it. The flowers that appeared on the kitchen counter every Friday, the way he'd drop everything if she needed him. She met more of his family, extended cousins, old friends, people who'd known him since he was a boy in Naples. They welcomed her with warmth once they saw Luca was serious, once they understood she wasn't going anywhere. Her own family was more complicated. Her parents were wary of Luca's obvious wealth and vague business dealings. Her brother was suspicious. But over time, as they saw how happy Sarah was, how protected and cherished, they began to soften. Derek went to trial. Sarah testified, describing his escalating behavior, the threats, the violence. With the evidence the police had found and Rachel's testimony about his continued stalking, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison and a permanent restraining order upon release. Sarah watched him being led away in handcuffs and felt nothing. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just freedom. That chapter of her life was closed, and a new one was beginning. It was a random Tuesday when Luca came home early from a meeting, looking nervous in a way Sarah had never seen him. He was always so controlled, so certain. But tonight, his hands shook slightly as he poured himself a drink. Luca, what's wrong? Sarah set down the book she'd been reading. Did something happen? No, yes. I don't know. He downed the whiskey in one gulp, then turned to face her. Sarah, I need to ask you something. Okay, we've been together for 6 months, living together for 3, and I know that's not very long, by normal standards. But nothing about us has ever been normal. He crossed the room and knelt beside her chair, taking her hands. I love you. I love everything about you. Your strength, your kindness, your stubbornness. The way you see the best in people even when they don't deserve it. The way you've accepted my world, my family, without flinching. You make me want to be better, to do better. Sarah's heart was racing. Luca, let me finish, please. He pulled a small box from his pocket, and Sarah's breath caught. I want to spend my life with you. I want to wake up next to you for the next 50 years. I want to build a family with you, grow old with you, face whatever comes together. Sarah Mitchell, will you marry me? He opened the box, revealing a ring that caught the light and scattered it like stars. A single diamond, simple and perfect. Sarah couldn't breathe, couldn't think. 6 months ago, she'd been cowering in a parking garage, afraid and alone. Now she was here, with this impossible man, being offered everything she'd never dared to dream of. Yes, she whispered. Then louder. Yes. Yes. I'll marry you. Luca's face transformed, joy breaking through his usual control. He slipped the ring onto her finger. A perfect fit, because of course he'd made sure, and pulled her down to the floor with him, kissing her like she was oxygen and he was drowning. I love you, he murmured against her lips. So much. I'll spend the rest of my life protecting you, cherishing you, making sure you never doubt how loved you are. I know, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. I know you will. Because that's who you are. My protector. My partner. My love. They held each other on the floor of their penthouse, the city glittering beyond the windows, two people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to build something bright. Later, much later, Sarah would tell this story to her friends, her family, anyone who asked how she met the love of her life. She'd tell them about the parking garage, the stranger who stepped in, the protection that became partnership, the danger that became devotion. She'd tell them about the moment she realized that sometimes the best things come from the worst situations, that sometimes you have to lose yourself completely before you can find your way home. And she'd tell them that Luca Moretti saved her life twice, once from Derek in that dark parking garage, and once from the belief that she didn't deserve to be loved fiercely, protectively, completely. Because she did. They all did. And sometimes, if you were lucky, the universe sent you a dangerous man with gentle hands and a fierce heart to prove it.